y'all, it's Olivia. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're subscribed. Today we are filming a video for my TBR for a readathon that I've been looking forward to since the day it ended last year. And that's of course the Spooky Smart Bitch readathon that's hosted by Jordaline at Jordaline Reads. I had a ton of fun doing this one last year, and I loved the live show. I loved all the books that I read. I think they were all hits last year, and I'm hoping for the same stuff this year. I think that it seems like it's grown even more since this time last year, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I thought that I would put together a TBR because I've been enjoying watching other people's TBRs and just, you know, getting some thoughts for books that I can read in the future. So this is a readathon that's hosted for the entire duration of August and has multiple prompts. I don't remember how many off the top of my head, so let's just get into it. The first prompt for this readathon is to read a horror novel or that's based on a true story or a true crime novel. And I'm not like a huge true crime person, so I was like looking through the books at the library, the true crime section, and I saw that this book was in there. And I was like, hey, I already own this book that I bought like, I think in 2017 or 2018, a long time ago, and haven't read yet. The Story of Dan Brite, Crime, Corruption, and Injustice in the Crescent City, as told to Justin Nobel. And this is published by, I think, University of New Orleans Press. So it's about this man who was sentenced to like death row, was wrongfully convicted of the murder of Murray Barnes after the prosecutors and the FBI withheld key evidence at his trial. He was 26 years old at the time and spent 9 years in prison before the Louisiana Supreme Court reversed his conviction in 2004. So I don't think that this is like the true crime that's maybe was, you know, envisioned for this prompt, but this has been on my shelf for a while, and it is a book that I want to get to. And I don't love like reading about like real life horror, if that makes sense. Like I don't want to I don't know, I don't like reading about like true crime stuff, like murders and stuff like that. Like the true crime that I do find interesting is like art heist and stuff like that. Like nothing where people die or get tortured or anything like that. I don't love it. But obviously this is real crime, that there was police corruption, and so I think this is the perfect time to read this. One of the next prompts is to read a translated novel, and I forgot to mention this at the start of the video, but it's also Women in Translation Month, so I will be adding on like a few books at the end that I know I'm going to get to this month, as well as just that if I'm looking to swap anything out during this month, that I'm going to try to find a woman in translation. But this book is out by Natsuo Kirino. This is a book that I've talked about before on my channel because it was a book that I said that I wanted to get to this year in my mid-year freak out challenge. This was a book that I originally started to buddy read with my friend Alicia, and we both dropped off right here. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna restart it. I probably should since I'm only like 30 pages in, but like this is actually a pretty big book, like considering it's only like 400 pages long. That's like pretty long for, I think it's actually more like a crime thriller more than like a horror book, but I think it's gonna count for this for sure. And it's translated from the Japanese. So reading this from my translated horror novel pick. Next prompt I want to talk about is reading a book written by a woman. And for this, I picked The Cipher by Kathe Koja. I started reading this too, right before one of our hurricanes last year. And I remember I was like sitting reading it while the storm was going outside, and then all my power went out, and then I stopped reading it. And then I think in the days after the hurricane, like I didn't get my power back for a while, and just like the up in the airness, like for whatever reason, I just put this down even though I had really been enjoying it. This is a book that was first put on my radar by Alec at the Bookybus, who loves this book, and I'm loving this book so far. But I definitely want to read and finish this during this readathon because I've loved it and I want to I want to finish it, and I think it's a really good pick. I think it is a spooky smart bitch kind of pick. So, The Cipher by Kathe Koja. I'm not going to talk too long about these during my TBR video, but this is about a couple, or a young man and his lover, I think like on and off girlfriend, who find like this weird hole in their apartment building that they call the fun hole, and like they put stuff in it and weird stuff happens whenever stuff goes in the fun hole and comes out changed. It's like a very like 90s grimy kind of novel. So far from what I've read, it's like very, I can imagine that the writing style people either love or it turns them off because it's frequently agrammatical and I wouldn't say like stream of consciousness, but just has a very unique voice to it. So that's The Cipher by Kathe Koja. The next prompt that I want to talk about is to read a book by an LGBTQIA2S+ author, and for this I picked Drawing Blood by Poppy Z. Brite. Poppy Z. Brite is the pen name of Billy Martin, who is a trans author, and this is set in New Orleans around a computer hacker on the run from the law, and I think it's kind of, I don't really know anything about this except for my friend Kat over at Bibliobscura loves this book, and like that's enough for me. And I think it's like 90s cyber-y. Drawing Blood makes me think it might have like vampires, and because it's set in New Orleans too, but I think he writes like a lot of his books set in New Orleans. But an author that I've wanted to read from for a while, and I think this is the perfect time to do so. So very much looking forward to Drawing Blood. Another prompt that I want to talk about is to read a horror manga, and for this, I have read horror manga in the past, but almost exclusively by Junji Ito. So over on my Twitter, I asked my friends to recommend me horror manga that weren't by Junji Ito, just because even though I love him, I wanted to read something different. And my friend Alec Robbins of Mr. Boop fame recommended to me Mermaid Saga by Rumiko Takahashi. And this is, I think, not super gruesome horror, but like spooky, weird, still like horror elements mermaid story. And it has truly gorgeous inner artwork, and I love like the shine on that. So looking forward to this, and I think there's 2 volumes, maybe more of this, but I think it's something that I will really like. A new prompt this year that I was really excited to see, definitely very interesting. Hi Daisy. Hi baby. We love you. Say hello to your fans. Yeah. Was to read a book that you've never seen talked about on social media before. And my original idea was to go to the library and just pick a book out from there that I'd never seen. And there I saw We Eat Our Own by Kea Wilson. And it sounded really interesting to me, but if I have this other pick too, I might actually look at reviews and see if this is worth reading. But it says, an ambitious debut told in precise prose, We Eat Our Own follows an international film crew to the Amazon in the 1970s and explores the forces that underlie human violence and the faint borderline between art and life. And it's about like an Italian pulp horror director going to the Colombian rainforest to make a film, and like horror unwinding from there. So I love books that are set around like movies. Like I just finished The Remaking, which I loved. And I think that it would be cool to read about like a 1970s like Italian horror director. This is like pretty recent, but it makes me kind of skeptical whenever it's like about traveling. I just worry about like it exoticizing like South America in a way that's like, I think that there could just be like questionable elements, not that this does, but I might read reviews actually if if I'm actually going to go with this other pick, which I think I am. This is a book that's been on my shelf for a while called Hell by Kathryn Davis. And it's described as part mystery, part domestic meditation, part horror story, which I think we all really know means like, it's like a moody literary fiction more than horror. But it says it's a brilliantly eerie novel in which 3 households coexist in a single restless vision: a dollhouse, a dysfunctional family in the 1950s Philadelphia, and the cottage home of Edwina Moss, a 19th century expert on domestic management. While the inhabitants of the dollhouse are powerless to shape their destiny, the 4 members of the Philadelphia family dedicate themselves to mutual vigilance as if it might be possible to forestall disaster. It's cool. I found it at my used bookstore and I'd never heard of it, and it doesn't really have that many reviews on Goodreads from what I remember. So I think that this would be a good time. I do kind of have a goal to read some more stuff that have been on my shelves for a while, so I think that I want to read this over this. This sounds like it could be really cool or extremely problematic, so I think I actually am gonna check out reviews now, even though my goal was kind of to like pick up something without looking at what other people thought of it, because I think that's kind of the heart of the prompt. But I think I'm probably gonna go with this one. The last prompt is to read a book by a BIPOC author, and for this I'm reading The Gilda Stories by Jewelle Gomez, which is a lesbian vampire novel. And this is also the, oh my goodness, what is the story time 90s book club called? I'm blanking, but I will link it information down below. My so-called book club, I think is what it's called. I think that's right. So those are my picks for the Spooky Smart Bitch Readathon. The group book is The Taking of Jake Livingston, which I put on hold at the library. But I'm not sure will come in time, so I may or may not be reading that with everyone. It seems like everyone's reading it right now, so I think if I ever were to, this would be the time. I don't usually read a lot of YA horror just because I usually think it has like a cool premise, which it sounds like this book does, but I'm never that excited with the payoff from it whenever I do read them, so we might just see. I might be skipping the group book. So I just have a few other books that I know I'm gonna read in August. One I've already started because the library loan came in for the audiobook, and it's a 40-hour audiobook, so I had to get started because I can only listen to it in 21 days because there's people after me in line too. And that's Ninth Street Women, which is a book about women painters, artists in the modern art movement in New York City. And the other things that I'm thinking about reading this month are related to Women in Translation Month. So this month I want to read Gumbo People by Sybil Kein, which is a bilingual poetry collection from a Louisiana poet. So all the poems are told in both Creole French and in English, and I think she does the translations herself. So yep, a New Orleans Creole poet. I'm looking forward to reading this. And then kind of similarly, I'm hoping to read some of the poems from the Edge of Extinction this month. Not all of the poems in here are by women, but this was first put on my radar by Jen Campbell, and it's an anthology of poetry in endangered languages. So all the poems in here are told both in English and then in their original language for languages which there are like few native speakers anymore. And it's from all around the world. Like they have like African poets, Asian poets, European poets, Middle Eastern poets. So hoping to actually start reading some of these for this month, for Women in Translation Month. But I think that's all that I know I'm getting to this month, but I will probably be filling in, if I finish that long audiobook, then I'll probably be filling in like extra women in translation. But I think that this is a pretty doable TBR. We may make adjustments. Hopefully we can actually get through out this time. I think we will. I think if I like put my mind to it, I can. So I am so excited for this readathon. If you're participating too, please let me know down in the comments, especially if you have like a TBR video, because I love watching everyone's. If you have any, if you've read any of these books already, definitely let me know and what you thought of them. Because even if you didn't like them, I'm still gonna read them. So like, I'm fine with those kind of comments. I know not everyone is, but I've decided what I'm gonna read, so no one's gonna turn me off of them. And I think that's it for today. Yeah, so please comment down below for any of those things. Like the video, subscribe if you wanna like hear what I think about any of these books later. And I think that's it for today. Bye y'all.